Hey guys, back today again with another day of Love Dare. This is day 22. Love is faithful. Hosea 2:20 says, "I will betroth you to me in faithfulness. Then you will know the Lord." As Christians, love is the basis of our whole identity as God's children. He gives us the name Beloved, which means we are ones who are unconditionally loved by God. The focus of our lives becomes loving God and loving others. Jesus clarified God's greatest command for us by saying, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your strength, your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." That's Luke 10:27. Our love for each other is supposed to be how people distinguish us as Christ's disciples. That's John 13:35. It is the root and ground of our existence. That's Ephesians 3:17. It's meant to be expressed with passion and fervency in 1 Peter 4:8. And love is an exercise we are to abound in more and more. That's 1 Thessalonians 3:12. Always getting better at it, becoming increasingly defined by it. So if love is what we were created to share, what do you do when your love is rejected? How do you handle it when the one to whom you've pledged your life stops accepting the love you're called to give? The account of the prophet Hosea is one of the most remarkable in the Bible. Against all logic and propriety, God instructed him to marry a prostitute. He wanted Hosea's marriage to show what heaven's unconditional love looks like toward us. Hosea's union with Gomer produced 3 children, but, as expected, this woman who had long made her living in immorality was not content to stay faithful to one man. So Hosea was left to deal with a broken heart and the shame of abandonment. He had loved her, but she had spurned his love. They had grown close, but now she had been disloyal and adulterous, rejecting him for the lust of total strangers. Time passed, and God spoke to Hosea again, telling him to go and reaffirm his love for this woman who had been repeatedly unfaithful. By now, however, she had reached a new low and was being sold as a dirty, unwanted slave. But Hosea paid the price for her redemption and brought her home. Yes, she had treated his love with contempt. She had dealt treacherously with his heart. Yet he welcomed her back into his life, expressing an unconditional love toward her. This is a true story, but God used it to paint a lasting picture of his love for us. Through Hosea's actions, we see a God who showers his favor on us without measure, though we often don't pay attention in return. At times, we have acted shamefully and deemed his love an intrusion, as if it is keeping us from what we really want. We have rejected him in many ways, even after receiving his gift of eternal salvation, and yet he still loves us. He still remains faithful. Even so, his love doesn't keep him from calling us to account for our mistreatment of him. We pay more of a price for our rejection than we often realize. Yet he still chooses to respond with grace and mercy. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses according to the riches of his grace. That's Ephesians 1:7. In him we have the model of what rejected love does. It stays faithful. Jesus called his followers to this kind of love in the passage known as the Sermon on the Mount. He said to love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. That's Luke 6:27 and 28. After all, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. That's Luke 6:32, 33. He said, love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High. For he himself is kind to ungrateful and evil men. That's Luke 6:33. From the vantage point of the wedding altar, you would never have dreamed that the person you married might later become to you a kind of enemy, one who would need to love, one you would need to love as a difficult and even painful sacrifice. And yet far too often in marriage, the relationship does indeed dwindle down to that level, even to the point of betrayal or, sadly, to unfaithfulness. For many, this is the beginning of the end. Some respond by rapidly moving toward a tragic divorce. Others, more protective of their reputation in the eyes of others, decide to keep the charade going, but they have no intention of liking it or trying any harder, much less of truly loving again. This is not the model, however, for the follower of Christ. If love is to be like his, it must love even when its overtures are returned unwanted. And for your love to be like that, it must be his love to begin with. The reason why you still have hope of giving undeserved love to your spouse is because God has given his undeserved love to you repeatedly, enduringly. Love is often expressed the most to those who deserve it the least. Ask him to fill you with the kind of love only he can provide, then purpose to give it to your mate in a way that reflects your gratefulness to God for loving you. That's the beauty of redeeming love. That's the power of faithfulness. Here's today's dare. Love is a choice, not a feeling. It is an initiated action, not an impulsive reaction. Choose today to be committed to love, even if your spouse has lost most of their interest in receiving it. Say to them today in words similar to these, I love you, period. And no matter what you do, I will never stop loving you. But the only way you could say that and mean it is if when you feel rejected, whether it's real rejection or it's just in your own head. There's a lot of things I feel that's just in my own head. It's not real rejection, but I think it is. But regardless of what it is, the only way you could make that statement that I love you, period, and I'll never stop, is that you have a real, intimate, personal relationship with love himself, love eternal, who is a person, is Jesus Christ, who is the giver of that love. He's the giver of who he is. And he's made a way to give that love absolutely. He is spirit and he is love, and he'll pour himself out like a river into your heart. And so you're constantly living face to face with him. I've just done a study recently on John 1:1 where it talks about the Word was with God. And that phrase is really, it's not just that he was hanging out with God. It was that they were in face-to-face communion with an intelligent, passionate discourse of engagement, face-to-face, the Father and the Son. And then the Bible goes on to say in 1 John that John's saying, look, we know this Jesus. We knew him, and he's trying to say the same thing. We knew him face to face. We could see him. We could touch him. We could hear him. We experienced him, and he changed our lives, because that face-to-face relationship is where you're getting that love from. He's the source of love, and he's giving it to you, and it's a face-to-face encounter. It's a heart-to-heart thing. And if it's real, then and only then can you give that. And then further, I was studying the Genesis 2:18, where God's telling Adam that he was going to give him a helpmeet, and that word helpmeet in the Hebrew is ezer kenedigo, I think is the way you say it. But that essentially is saying, I'm going to give you someone. It's your counterpart. It's your other half, and in some ways, she's going to be better than you are at things. And so in the complement there of you guys coming together as one in love, the phrase face to face is in that. I'm going to give you your counterpart for you to be face to face with. And so in the beauty of that picture, what God's telling us to do is the same thing he does. It's an eternal thing. The Father and the Son and the Spirit, they live this face to face exchange of love. And so he tells us to do the same thing. As a mirror, do it like we do it. Be face to face with one another. So with your spouse, you want to be face to face. But to really do that, and to do that faithfully, each one of you have to be in that face to face relationship with God. He's the source. You can't truly love anybody without him. But that type of love, it's a giving love. It's not a love that has strings attached, like if I'll do this if you will in return. It's just a one-way love. Now, when both people are doing that, though, the synergistic power of that, man, if we could see what is available, if we would just enter into love as it is given and give it as it's given to us, to our spouse. And if both are doing that, oh my goodness, it's a beautiful picture. So be loved, be faithfully loved by God first, and then turn around and give that same thing face to face with your spouse today. That's the word of encouragement. Be blessed today. God bless you all. Bye-bye.